In this video from ITFreeTraining, I will look at classful and classless IP4 networking. Understanding these topics will help you later on when you start subnetting IP addresses. The first system I will look at is classful. This system was used back in the 1980s and was quite wasteful. It was later replaced by classless, which will be the next topic I cover. Although classful networking is no longer used today, it is sometimes still referred to, so you need to have a basic understanding of it. Using classful networking, IP addresses are broken down into 5 different classes. The first class is Class A. An IP address that is Class A is identified by its first bit being 0. This essentially means any IP address from 0.0.0.0 to 127.255.255.255. When classful networking was used, a default subnet mask was assigned to it. In the case of a Class A, this is 255.0.0.0. This means that there were 128 Class A networks, but each network had over 16 million addresses. Even though these networks could be subdivided into smaller networks, which I will look at later on in the video, you can see that these networks were quite large and addresses tended to be wasted. The next class is Class B. Any IP address starting with the bits 10 is a Class B address. This means that 128.0.0.0 all the way to 191.255.255.255 is a Class B address. This gave over 16,000 networks with over 65,000 addresses per network. This is still a large number of addresses per network. However, in a moment, we will see how this can be reduced to make better use of the address space. The next class is C. All IP addresses that start with 110 are Class C. This means any address starting with 192.0.0.0 through to 223.255.255.255. This gives over 2 million networks with 256 addresses per network. The next class is Class D. This is used with multicast. Multicast is when one packet is sent to multiple computers. The last class is Class E. This is reserved. Maybe one day it will be used, but currently is not. Classful addresses can be divided up into smaller parts to reduce the amount of wasted addresses. Let's have a look how. I will now briefly look at the topic of subnetting. This topic is covered in more detail in later videos, so don't worry if you don't understand it yet. First, consider that I have been given a Class A network. By default, I will get one network with over 16 million addresses. Even though there are some large networks in the world, it is unlikely that 16 million devices will be on the same network in the same location. So if this network was implemented as is, there would be a lot of waste. To get around this waste, the administrator can use a different subnet mask than the default and thus create more networks with less addresses on each network. As shown here, the subnet mask is changed to 255.255.0.0, which allows the original network to be divided up into 256 smaller networks with over 65,000 addresses per network. This is a much better use of the addresses. In later videos, I will go into subnetting in more detail, but I needed to look at it briefly to have a look at the next topic. As I said earlier in the video, classful networking was later replaced with classless interdomain routing, otherwise known as CIDR. You will need to be aware of classful networking as sometimes it still gets referenced, but nowadays CIDR is the standard. CIDR was introduced in an attempt to reduce the growth of routing tables and IP address use. We have already seen how wasteful classful networking can be, so how does CIDR achieve this? CIDR achieves this by allowing any subnet mask to be used. In order to make this easier when working with subnet masks, CIDR introduces a new way of representing networks. The default is network / followed by the number of bits that are used in the subnet mask. To understand better, let's look at some examples. In this example, the subnet mask is 255.255.255.0, which can be shown as /24. Cases where the subnet mask are multiples of 8 are quite simple, but notice the next example where the subnet mask is /20. This would give a subnet mask of 255.224.0.0. The last example I will look at is /25. This would have a subnet mask of 255.255.254.0. Both ways of writing the subnet mask are equally valid, and it is more of a choice of the administrator which one they want to use. You can see that classless interdomain routing is the simpler of the two systems to use. All the administrator needs to do is look at the IP address and work out its subnet mask. The administrator does not need to be concerned with what class the address is. Sometimes you may hear references to classful networking. For example, if you were allocated a block of IP addresses, you may get told you have been allocated a Class C network. Other than that, you won't hear them mention that too much nowadays. Now that I have laid down the foundations of IP4 networking, in the next video I will look at subnetting, which is the process of dividing up networks into smaller parts. This is where things start to get a bit difficult, but I'm sure that if you join me for the videos, we can get through it. Until then, I would like to thank you for watching.